Genome here, coming at you with the next episode of Graders Notes. This is when four very august gentlemen get together and kind of dissect books from our storied past and see if they still hold up and to put a modern eye on an older idea. So to start with, we're going to go ahead and, for those of you who are just now turning in, kind of introduce everybody. So if Mr. Miracle will please say a few words about yourself, and we will move on down the line from there.
Hey, my channel is Mr. Miracle Comics. My name is Dave. What do you want to know? What do you want to know? I've been collecting for, God, so long, since I was a little tiny kid. So I'm pretty interested when I get to see 90s books like this one, because I kind of stopped collecting for a long time at that point. It's a typical story of people my age where they stopped collecting for a time right around that 90s when everything crashed, right? So got more interested in, girls and stuff like that and drop comics. So I never read this off the shelf. But yeah, I'm going to be pretty excited here to tell you my opinion of this book.
All right. Just a little background. This is my week's choice. Now, it's, of course, Aliens vs. Predator, the very first one from Dark Horse Comics. It's a very short little story arc, 4 issues. So we're going to go ahead and do a little bit different and go over the entire series. So next up, we have the man, the myth, the legend, the sweaty macho head, none other than Comic Head 84. Kenny, if you would please grace us with a few words.
Yeah, what's up, Gino? Hello, people. Comic Collector, Nerd versus Fat. Good to see you guys joining us. It's Graders Notes time, baby. You know what time it is. RLM Comics and Collectibles. Welcome. It's one of my favorite shows to do, where I link up with the boys. And we're going to dissect some books and drop our grades on it. Drop our truth bombs on it. Do we love it? Do we hate it? Is it serviceable, as Genome says?
My favorite words. I love that word.
We're gonna find out, and this is the first time Graders Notes first. We're gonna apply a grade to a whole 4-issue series versus the single issue we've been doing. So, yeah, man, that's what's going on. Hey, Discovery, thanks for joining, buddy.
All right. Thank you, sir. And coming up next would be our very elder statesman here. As we talk about none other than Metarog, the ambassador to the comic books community. Mr. Metarog, why don't you, grace us with a few words of wisdom?
Elder statesman. That's so succinct and so true, I'm afraid. Thank you, Gino, for that introduction. Let me say, this is like Kenny. This is one of my absolutely favorite shows to do. Because this is what I like to do. I like to dig deep. I like to probe. I like to dissect. I like to eviscerate, if necessary, comic story arcs and issues. So to me, I'm very excited. That's why I'm talking so almost wrestle-like, right? Because I'm so excited. I'm so pumped because I did read the series when it came out initially, but I have not read it, since what's this, 30 years almost now. So I have very different views today than I did then. So thank you, Gino, for picking this one, because it really is one that I wanted to read anyway. And for $5, you can't beat a 4-issue series like this.
No, I really can't believe how cheap it still is. I mean, I know it sold, quite a bit of copy back then, but I didn't think that it would still be as cheap as it is. I mean, you get like near mint copies here for $5. So yeah, it's really, really easily affordable. And once again, I had really fond memories of this series. So I thought, what the heck? It's my turn to pick. So we're going to do something a little off the wall from an indie publisher, not only indie, Dark Horse and all. But for those of you who might have missed it in the past, hopefully you're going to get gleaning for what's going on. And for those of you who read it, please feel free to chime in the chat. And at the end, when we grade each section and see if it lines up with what we're talking about. So for those of you who have never tuned in before, I think pretty much all of you have, but real quick recap, what we do is we go through 5 different parts of the book and grade them individually on a basically 10-point scale. So 1 through 5, 1 being awful and 5 being stupendous, with a 0.5 divider in between. So you can see it 3.5 or something like that. So no 2 5s, no 7 5s, something like that. We round to the middle here. So always going to be different us. So the things we're going to be going over are the cover art, the interior art, the concept, the story, and then we go ahead and give it an overall grade. Now, sometimes there's an aggregate of those scores, which is probably more in keeping with integrity and all, but sometimes we fudge a little bit and kind of add a nostalgia point or two, or some other mitigating factor there to bump up or lower a score. So just be prepared for that. So without further ado, I think we're going to go ahead and jump in feet first with the cover art, as we usually do. And we will go ahead and start off in the order that I introduced everybody. So Mr. Miracle, why don't you go ahead and give us your take on the cover art of mostly the first issue, but you can kind of chime in on the other one since we're doing all four. One more thing too is I'll have us all on a 3-minute timer for each section and kind of keep things flowing. So when you hear, pull it up here. I had it here. There it is. When you hear the gobbler, it's time. You got about 20 seconds left. So wrap it up, and that's pretty much it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dissect this amazing series. Mr. Miracle, if you would.
All right, so the cover. Let's take a look at this orange piece of crap. Terrible. Terrible. What the heck is this? This is Phil Norwood. I was like, what is going on with this guy? I had to go and look him up. He is a storyboard artist for movies. Hey, Beth, go back to what you're good at, because this is not it. These covers, what the hell? Look at this one. If you take your hand out of this guy, like an alien hand off him, it looks like the Predator's face is all smushed over to the left. Like there's no sense of anatomy, and it's just a head. This one, this is like the flattest piece of crap. This guy cannot, I don't know. And then you come to what I think is a bit of a gem here. And we take a look at this one, which is by Dorman. I forget his first name already. But it's a painted cover, and he does a great job. And it's very painterly, and he does some great composition. Like, see how all these lines come in from the top like that? That's a trick that like good composition uses to draw your eyes back to the centerpiece here. And it really looks like these guys are cornered. The composition of the bodies is good. The coloring is good, right? So this cover impressed me. But I was like, what? Why would people even this be a popular one? It must be the name, because if I saw this cover on the shelf right now, there's no way I'm paying money for this, right? I'm like, no way. I have to give this a big boo earns. No, thank you. For Phil Norwood. Phil Norwood, like if you know what storyboarding is for a movie, they kind of lay out the movie in what's basically a kind of a comic book stuff, but you don't have to have a lot of detail or anything. It's just simply a kind of an idea for the director to take a look at, and then the director actually does stuff with it, right? So to me, like this cover looks like he inked out his first kind of layout, right? He didn't actually take the drawing to any sort of level before he bothered to ink it out. The anatomy is wrong. That ship in the background is weird. Why is the ship so clear and then that Predator so kind of out of focus, right? Like that's not the way perspective works, bud, right? Like he's not a very good illustrator. I am gonna have to give this one a thumbs down and a big fat oon, because that's, if I can give it a 0, I would.
Wow.
Wait till I get to the interior.
Oh man, that is rough. Man.
Okay, well, we've got our dose of negativity this evening already out of the way, so it can only go up from there.
Yeah, I turned it up on the left foot there. What are the other people are going to think? Because, I mean, come on, guys, really? Okay,
don't taint our opinion. Don't taint our opinion. We give you your 3 minutes, all right?
I suppose I'm not trying to bias you out of anything, but that's my opinion, I think.
Well, on that particular note, I think we will go to our next reviewer, Mr. Comic84, and let's see if he concurs or he's a dissident here in this little endeavor. Sir, please go ahead.
Okay, will do. So I will say that I was not blown away by these covers. Not as turned off to them as Dave was. But I will say this, it is unfortunate that issue 1, the cover of issue 1, is the worst of the bunch. And that one's a head scratcher for me because that's the one that you really want to be the home run. And I really don't like this cover very much at all. I think a lot of the points he made out were fair. You know, I think the color palette, this orange with the lime green is not a good color dynamic for a cover. You know, the image is okay of the Predator, but it's nothing to really write home about. I'm not a fan of the first one. I think that's the worst of the bunch. But when you get to the second one, I actually really dig this one. I like it. It's a up close, action scene. It'd be nice if this actually happened in the book, because a lot of these covers don't really indicate too much of the book sometimes. But this one I think is a great cover. I think it's great detail. I think that's a sick Predator face. So that one's cool. I do think it's interesting that they changed the color of the trade dress with each issue to kind of match that palette of that issue, which I think is cool. I just think that this color scheme was a misstep, but I like that this one, they have the red trade dress. This one has the yellow. This was another one that I was a fan of. I thought it was cool. I just think the Predators don't look very much like Predators. Like, they look more like straight up robots. They're kind of short and stumpy. And I don't know. I think Predators could be drawn a little better, but those aliens are pretty rocking right there. And I like the color palette on this one with the dark tone, with the yellow. And then the last one is, yeah, you're right. Those were all by the Norwood artist. This is a different artist, the painter guy. Again, color scheme change. You got the white one here. And it's all right. I mean, I would rank this one the second worst. Like, this would be the third. It was okay, but I wasn't too big on the painting. So I think the first issue would be the one I like the least, painted one. And I think that's my favorite. I actually really like that. So anyway, I thought they were good. I wasn't totally blown away. I pretty much gave it the two of them make me round down, because I want to say that they were above average, but with the way that the first one missteps, in my opinion, I'm going to give it straight average, 2.5 for the cover.
All right, Comic Cat 84 coming in with a 2.5, getting a little more middle of the road now. We're getting back to more reasonable territory, as it were. Mr. Metarog, Statesman, once again, it's up to you to almost break this impasse. Are we looking at definite mediocrity or soaring potential? Tell us your thoughts.
I actually think the covers are fairly effective. The first one, yeah, I agree, is the weakest but you have to understand that they are pretty representative of what's going on in the story. Remember, this is a binary system where there's a lot of daylight, a lot of heat, and thus that's why the yellow and orange palette, to give it that sense that it's not really Earth, right? That you're on an alien planet. Yeah, I think I'm not crazy about the roundness of Norwood's art. You know, everything looks kind of like almost like a psychedelic in a sense. But I do like that that he does represent what is inside the issue here. Again, we have the very big figure here of the Predator. Yeah, the detail is off a bit. And I think Kenny said something. They look kind of stocky to me. They really don't look like the tall, imposing figures that they should be. And the perspective is off. Dave is right about that. But I think he hit this one a little too hard. But yeah, I'm not a fan of this particular issue per se, but I don't think it's horrible either. This one is my favorite right here, because it gives you a first-person perspective from the xenomorph. Attacking and about to impale that Predator right through the head with that prehensile tail. And again, very good detail here with that eye peering back. And you can only imagine what's going through his head before that spike does. Uh, and yeah, it's kind of twisted. Remember that sand, so he's probably being pushed into that terrain there. So I think this is a pretty effective cover. This is the one. If this was the first cover, but again, they didn't really battle in the first issue. But something like this would have been more eye-catching to me than this kind of, not that good, right? And this one I think is okay, kind of on the average side. You get the acid effect here, but again, a very stocky, very weird, almost like a Ninja Turtle like predator there. But I do like the attacking alien jumping at him. Very good detail on the crown here, and again on that Tarkatan tail. Very nice. And of course, like everybody else, this is the best one of the bunch. Dave Dorman painted cover. She did not have one of these Japanese swords in the issue as far as I can remember, but look at all they're surrounded by the aliens, and you get that feeling of dread and of almost impossibility. Very good issue. Very good cover there. So overall, I give this just slightly better than average, a 3.
All right. Well, we have a 3, so we are creeping up almost by 1 point each one. So I guess we can only go up from there, right? Thank you very much, sir. So let's go ahead and see what the showrunner, think of this. And by the way, since I am running the show, my grade counts double. So we're going to go ahead and start with number 1. Now, let me get my timer going. I can't cheat myself. So number 1, a lot of people have kind of poo-pooed on this. No one actually mentioned the back of this book. I think it's kind of sweet. I don't know about you. I agree that the proportion's a little off on the Predators. It's easier to forgive that when they're solo.
Mine doesn't have that, by the way.
It doesn't have it? Oh,
Yeah.
you should have got yours off the newsstand like me.
I haven't had it.
That's the broken Tusk right back there. But yeah, the proportion's a little off when you see them against other things. When they're solo, you can't tell quite as much. But yeah, I think they should have elongated the body or the torso a little more on these guys. But I have no problem with this cover. In fact, I love this cover a lot for 2 reasons. One, it just it grabs you. If I'm walking by a shelf, a rack right there, this comic, whether you like the art or not, it's going to grab you. This orange and green, it just grabs your eyes. That's not a typical color for a comic book. So I don't think it's horrible. Yes, the detail in the background is a little bit off. And, of course, these are not Jim Lee finishes here on the body itself. But, I mean, the spear looks freaking amazing, I think. It's got kind of an interesting dynamic scene, like he's stalking through this. Well, there's no brush to be had there. But this is like during high noon when the 2 suns are up, I think. So that's why you'll see some different lighting, too, on some of these covers. That could be just me overthinking. But getting to my favorite cover of the entire set, this one's just incredible for a couple different reasons. For one thing, you don't know it until I think at the end of this book. This is actually the main character right here for the Predators. This is Broken Tusk right here. So they went ahead and added him in there. If you look, if any of you guys are fans of the movies of Aliens, look at the fingers. They had the finger split right here. It's a little known, barely ever seen in the movies factoid, but they got that little thing right. So this is just such a gorgeous scene, man. You can tell he's in big trouble. They got a guy standing up. They also got a toe split in here too, which is cool. But he's in big trouble. So I think this is, look at the articulation of the face. The mandibles are just right. I think it's just gorgeous. People have been poo-pooing on Phil, but this is pretty damn good. Definitely his best of these, I'd say. For the third cover, kind of a typical action fair. I believe it was Kenny mentioned that the aliens look sick in this, and they do much better than the Predator does. I don't know if they need to splash a color or something like that, but yeah, I think Roger said something about the Ninja Turtle facet. So yeah, there's a little bit of that going on there with the Predator too, but the aliens just look amazing. This acid effect is just great, I think, and with the smoke rolling off of there, or sulfuric acid, whatever's rolling off of there, still got the finger split right, and the toes back here. So just everything good. The fluting here along the crown and all. It's a good cover. It's effective. It's not it's probably the second best one here for me. And finally, the painted cover. The only thing I don't care for in this cover is I'm not really crazy about the tails. I know it looks a lot like, oh man, they're surrounded, but I would like to have seen like a claw or something in there, or maybe some slime dripping out, like there's a head right over the top, and not just the ends of the tail barbs. Oops, I'm talking over. Sorry, I had to watch my time. So effective, good. yeah, I don't know why they had to throw a katana in there. I don't know if they're just stereotyping or what, but yeah, that was an interesting addition. But anyway, also a good one. I'm actually a really big fan of these covers. They used to hang on my wall many moons ago, back in the '90s. So I'm going to be a little more giving and give the overall score a 4.
Yeah, it went up in pretty much every increment there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably just my fanboyism. I don't know. I tried to be clinical about it, and I just always liked these covers. I mean, that's the first thing that grabbed me when I walked in there, the comic store. So yeah, I know the orange is getting a lot of flack from people, but I think it was a wise move. I think it was meant more for grabbing the eye of the new buyer than anything else, and I think that's why they went to more normal tones in the next couple issues. But
And it
so
is
that's what it
relevant.
is.
It is relevant to the story too. It is relevant to the binary system and the aura of the heat and the desertness, the kind of place where you're not going to last long without water, without transportation, things like that. And that is key to the story too.
I don't know if you've been keeping up on current events, man, but we just got our asses kicked, man.
All right, Hudson, easy now. Don't get
I
me
think it's
started on
good to the
mimicry.
chat and see what they got for a score on the cover.
All right, so this is the part where we go and let you, the faithful viewer, go in and decide for yourselves. So those of you who have seen what we have on screen here, or if you have the book yourselves, go ahead and stick your grade into the chat, and we will have Comic Head 84, our keeper of the abacus, go through the numbers and give us an aggregate, and we'll let you know how close you are to us. We are all over the spectrum, just saying, so we'll see what the chat thinks.
I can't believe I can't believe the grades you guys gave those covers. I was like, what?
Well, that's why we do this, Dave, because we have different perspectives, sir.
Look at this gun. Just look at the gun on that.
You want to write this down? I'll let you know what they are.
Look at the lack of detail on that gun. Then take a
Oh
look at
boy!
the last
All
cover
right,
and look
Dave,
at
give
the
it up. Your
gun.
3 minutes is up. Your 3 minutes is up, man. That horse is dead.
You guys are
3 from Unruly Simeon, 2.5 from the Comic Collector, 3 from Tomb of Comics, 2 from Biggie.
all right.
Yeah.
My man, he's on board. He knows what time it is.
2.5 from Nerd versus Fat.
I'm surprised the up close face one. You think that one's a 1 too? Think that's hot trash?
Yeah, man. Look at his face. His face is way smushed over onto the left side of his head there.
Dude,
It's being
nuts.
trampled by an alien. How would your face look?
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be on over here.
It would be if you're being pushed into the ground. And Russ gave us a 4, Kenny.
Thank you, Russ.
Hey.
Does Phil already owe you money or something? What?
Yeah, I tell you, man. I mean, God. Is it Canadian? Is this like some kind of feud that we don't know about?
Yeah, I know.
Oh no.
You should have been with us during the Liefeld cover. Man, I hate to see that score.
Oof.
Rather Liefeld did this one any day.
Jeez.
Oh, now that's just wrong.
Now we're digging up. Now we're digging up the dead. I mean,
That's Godfather 3 levels are wrong right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Kenny.
I will say, Comic Collectors is kind of right. I think luckily that cover's in there because that made me round. That curves the grade upward because I really like that one. But
Agreed.
it's not a strong output otherwise. Okay, so I got my numbers.
Yeah. All right, what we got?
We have an overall chat score of 2.8, which will give us a 3.
I believe I was the one who put it at a 3. If I just want to say that, just to
Man of the people.
Just sort of say that the chat is always right.
Well, it does seem like chat is kind of split too. I mean, there's a lot of I see some ones in there and some really low scores too, and some high ones. So, yeah, it's kind of a I don't know. It's a controversial cover, to say the least. So probably the most controversial one we've done so far.
Tomb of Comics is right. Mr. Miracle's going Simon Cowell on us.
I know, right? Oh, awful. Well, anyway, so we've gotten past the painful part, right? Well, we are past the cover part.
I wouldn't say that, Gino.
Well, we've already had a preview of what our northern friend thinks. So go ahead and fill in a 1 now, or should we just wait to the Christmas rush? So, okay, let's go ahead and skip around a little bit. Normally, you would progress to interior art, but since we need to get a higher score, hopefully, let's go ahead and start with the story. Comic Head 84, what do you think about the story in this series?
The story. So, if you were looking for a grade to round up, as far as I'm concerned, you don't want to start with the story, because I wasn't too taken with the story. Not enough aliens and predators in it. I'll start with that. There's the humans that we follow are not particularly interesting, in my opinion. I think the whole first issue kind of deals with the workplace of our Japanese boss lady, and her whole story arc basically is woman is the new boss, dealing with misogyny, doesn't really get enough respect, deals with sexual harassment and stuff, and then somehow in like the third or fourth issue at the end, she turns into a straight Rambo assassin. When it's been established in the beginning that she's like, yeah, she's like, oh, it's good to get outside because my whole life is, spreadsheets and computer information, this and that. So it's weird that she turns into a super Rambo. Thought that was weird. The motivations of most of the characters don't really. I feel like they're underdeveloped. I don't know. And keep in mind, I've seen the Schwarzenegger Predator movie. I've seen Aliens. I've never. Is there a movie, Aliens versus Predators?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've never seen
A couple of them.
never seen the verses. So I'm like, so as far as motivations go, I don't know why the Predators are going after the aliens. I don't know what the aliens are doing. And I don't know stuff like the lady who loses her husband in some kind of, I think she loses her husband in the accident. He's like going out to do some adventure, investigation and research, and he crashes and dies. So there's a woman grieving. She's the widow. Basically, a predator is responsible for his death. And, they have the predator captured in the base. And it's pretty expected that he's going to break free because it's like just a couple leather straps over him. So it's like, all right, when's he going to break out of that? And sure enough, he does. But he protects her from some other attacking predators. So again, motivation. I don't know why that predator was turning on his boys. And then even more so, that woman ends up sacrificing her life. She straight up dies for that predator alien, which those motivations seem fucked up. So yeah, I don't think any characters were very well fleshed out. I do give him props for trying to establish. Oh, that was all negative. Here's the good stuff. But I do give him props for really putting thought into establishing the science of the world. And that part was pretty interesting, describing the planet they're on with the double suns and all that kind of stuff. So that was good, but there wasn't enough. I would like to sink my teeth into the characters. Who are we following here? And I cared about nobody, and their actions didn't really make sense. So the story and the writing of this book got a 1.5 from me.
Wow. Wowzers.
All right, we got a 1.5. Look at that. So back to lower scores again. Let's see. Let me get this added up.
I hope Gino gets to have this back in a couple of weeks. You might find another triumvirate.
I better be careful what I pick next. All right, so let's go ahead and say Metarog. What did you think of the story? Was it a meandering tour de force, or was it a pedantic pile of bantha poodoo?
Whoa.
Well, I wouldn't say it was pedantic, but I wouldn't say it was exactly a tour de force either. Kenny brought up some good points, but I'm looking at this story like this is in the far-flung future, and the writer has some. I'm not crazy about it, but the writer has some agenda here, right? And obviously, we're talking about things like corporate greed and individual pride and pettiness. And we're talking about an overwhelming problem that they're way understaffed and under prepared for. So in that situation, people react very differently. Some people panic, some people fight, some people flight, the whole bit. So I understand they give you different aspects of characteristics of those people, right? And Kenny is right. The director is has sort of been a hard ass, because she thinks she has to, because she is a woman, that she believes that because of her sex that there is definitely some some kind of misogyny going on there. There's some kind of she's being attacked, even if not physically. She's not given the proper credit. And in fact, the previous director has been there for a while now, sort of to make sure that she can do the job. And eventually they become friends, but I think she resents him initially. So I thought that they did set it up okay, considering that this is a science fiction horror genre, and those do not have kind of deep, profound dialogue and deep, profound motivations. You have to sort of go with it a little bit. But I see Kenny's point there. But I think that the story was not terrible, because when you consider that this is an outpost, and they essentially are in the middle of nowhere, and they're sort of ranchers. I take it, trying to get these rhinos. So because the Earth is starving, or it has issues with feeding themselves, so they're going to a lot of trouble to go to this way off world to get this done. And again, once the predator, the egg laying machine arrives, and the predators come there to hunt them, that's their motivation. They want a challenge, And the only reason I think they're after the humans is because that guy crashed his craft into their spaceship, and now they're stranded there too. So yeah, they're going to be a bit, upset about that. So they figure all the humans are have to be eliminated, or else they're going to get them too. But everything really just hits the fan. And eventually, like you said, the leader realizes that lady's actually trying to help him. So he has some compassion for her. And again, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So they team up. Yeah, the lady comes up with these mad skills that we don't know where she got them from. But again, you don't know. She may have been, a practicing samurai for some reason, and just happened to get this job because she couldn't get anywhere in that field. So I thought the story actually was okay. I didn't like a lot of the characterizations. They were very stereotypical tropes. The guy that was always hitting on her, and I automatically assumed she was going to be attracted to him. The guy who was again his business overrides anybody's life. Those are kind of really stereotypical attitudes that I could have done without. But again, they set up part of the story. So overall, I didn't think it was terrible, but it could have been epic, and it wasn't. I give it a 3.
All right, Medrock coming in with a 3 for the story.
Am I frozen in the? Am I moving around? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, there you're fine.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does look like the picture is frozen there. Oh, there you go, moving. Okay. All right, so got a 3 there from Metarog. Well, that brings me next up to the plate. So what do I think about this story? Well, I used the word pedantic earlier, and this series has a little bit of a word problem. This should be a little more action oriented, and there is tons of character setup. Now, this is good in a way, but it's bad for an action comic. So I'm going to kind of ding it a little bit there. There's just a little too much talk about, the internal politics of the place, the nuances of Rinth herding, as Rinth is like the cross between a cow and a rhino, as basically their only source of income out there is these giant herbivores. I guess they're herbivores. Who doesn't really show them what they're eating, but. So there's a lot of dialogue, especially in the first issue or two, before things really get moving. So they could have definitely cut some of that, I think, and either showed some more action shots or just cut the panels period and made some bigger views for other stuff. So that being said, I think they set up the human characters very well. I mean, each person has a distinct personality. Yes, you got the greedy rancher, like the head of the Ranchers Guild or whatever. He's a bad guy, right? It's almost like a small version of Weyland Yutani here. You know, there's always the bad corporate, which is funny because they made the corporate people actually good people in this, the heroes of the story, which was a nice little touch, I think. But Miss Noguchi is very well panned out. It kind of has some small flashbacks to life on Earth, not too much, but a little bit. So you kind of get an idea where she's coming from. She's like the reluctant hero at first, you know. She's really cold and robotic. She's not good at mingling with people, and she kind of forces herself to. And then circumstances kind of really force her to be a protector of sorts to other people. Yeah, she did go a bit Rambo toward the end, inexplicably. That was a little confusing because there wasn't a whole lot of setup saying how martial she was, you know. She was just like corporate exec, but you know, it's a comic book. You gotta give them some leeway. They only have 4 issues to do it in. There's something else to be said about the alien and predator part, but you need something like this. This is the 0 issue, and it goes into a lot of why the predators and aliens are there. Kenny mentioned he didn't know what their motivation for the predators was. The predators they go around and they seed planets. I've read some of the other books too. They go around and seed planets with these alien eggs because they're the ultimate prey. So they like to hunt them in different environments. So their whole reason for putting the aliens as predator or on this planet was just to infect the local wildlife and then hunt the aliens. The humans just happen to be there. But Broken Tusk is a fascinating character, and all he does is mimic a few lines. So basically, he's a silent protagonist. But you know, you get to kind of caring for the guy. I mean, it makes sense why he saves the one doctor. I guess he figures out the doctor saved him. It's a bit of a stretch, all right. But what he is the chief. He's the clan chief. These are all young things. Like I think Jedi Padawan. So they don't really know their skills yet. So that's why they go on the rampage when he dies or gets injured. So without his leadership, yeah, they run amok and they're not too good. But he's highly skilled. He has a sense of code of honor that he adheres to, and it's just it's painful to see what happens to him. You know, you kind of feel bad when he goes, and you know, for a character you only know for 3 issues, that's kind of a rare thing. So I think overall they did a pretty good job with the story. They definitely could have lessened up some of the dialogue, but for what it does and what it's trying to convey, I think it does actually a pretty good job. I'm going to go ahead and go with a 3.5. All right. And finally, getting to our 4th distinguished presenter here, Mr. Miracle. What do you think about the story? Was I way off base, or are you a little more in line with Comic Cat 84 and saying that it was kind of bad?
They mostly come at night. Mostly. Anyways.
You're a COVID, aren't you?
The only thing fucking worse than this art on this book is the story. Oh my God. Did I ever have to force myself to fucking keep my focus on the page and not fall asleep or just fucking give up? Because this book is so wordy with all their politics, and then the characters are so wooden and their dialogue is so dumb. Like, hey, Jim, we better get them their space doggies in a row. What you talking about, space doggies? They're taking our jobs. Like, the fucking guys are space guys, but they talk like they're a bunch of hicks that just stepped out of their, like, I've been aiming it around a whole space cowboy show. Like, can we be more cliche? Can we get more cliche lines in there? What if you're not back in 20 minutes? Well, I'll be dead if I'm not back. Come on, man. How many times do I have to hear stupid freaking lines like that? Randy Stradizzi is the vice president of Dark Horse Comics. He is one of the founders of Dark Horse Comics, and I guarantee you that is the only reason he got to write this fucking book. Because if anybody at Dark Horse Comics took a sample of his reading, read something like this, and gave him a comic book, they deserve to be out on their ass. This comic book writing is dumb. Like, it's one of those ones where I'm reading it and I'm like, oh, what comic books would I buy if I won the lottery? Oh, right, reading, keep focusing, do it. And then, oh, I wonder if my cat is going to be. No, read the comic. Don't get so bored with all of this ranchers fighting against the corporation, and then the corporation's fighting against the spaceship guys crew, and the spaceship guys are having a political stuff with the guys back home. And it's like, oh my God, there's 2.5 books of nothing about these characters speaking like puppets, and all of a sudden this one girl who's this corporate person busts out like a ninja, and all of a sudden she's better than all the predators. Like, predators are getting wasted by all the xenomorphs left and right, and she's walking through there, pow, 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 fucking taking them all out. I'm like, what the hell? Where the hell did this come from? And why does she make the predators look like such a bag of pussies here? Right? Like, what's going on? Is this aliens versus this corporate chick, or is this aliens versus predator? And the fact that all of a sudden there's this Captain Nice Predator, One Tooth, why, I'll help you all out. Fuck off, man. Like, these guys are ruthless hunters. They have a different kind of culture. They're not helping out anybody. Ridiculous story. One, I give this I grudgingly give it a 1.
He's over there getting validated. Look at that.
No, it's just, it's entertaining. It's just entertaining.
Dave, you really just shouldn't mince words, man. I mean, you gotta get real with us, man, because I mean, that hedging you do is it's just not helping out the situation.
That's why I like the show, because I really liked Genome's take on it. Like, seeing him go through it, whether I just like agreed with every point that he made, or whether they resonated with me as much as they did with him, it was still cool to see him go through it. And I think he was taking in some points that the writers were hoping would come across, like feeling for Broken Tooth when he dies. And I guess it probably helps if you know a lot of their background, but I just felt like not enough was done in those pages to.
That's another thing too. Like,
for me to buy into
the chat and see what they see for want to give for grades, and we'll keep talking while they put their grades in here.
Right.
But yeah, like, they did not give enough background of their motivations. Like, all of a sudden there was that machine dropping eggs, and it looked like a bug, and you're like, is this the alien spacecraft? Like, the xenomorphs building spacecrafts and seeding planets? But you really needed to read either like issue 0 or Dark Horse Presents number 36 to get to understand what their motivation is. If you listen to what David was saying, he liked their stuff, but he kept referring back to other books. Oh, you had to read this book. Oh, yeah, I read this book. Oh, you had to bring up this book too. That's not what a limited series should be. That's poor writing. If you cannot compress your story into your 4 issues, you haven't told the story properly.
Yeah, I agree. They could definitely cut out some dialogue and made a quick, 3 or 4 page prologue at the very least. Because actually, the 0 book, it has no words in it. Basically, it's kind of funny how they do that. But
they could have cut all the dialogue, made this a silent issue, and I would have liked it 100% more.
Yeah, the chat really likes your assault thrower you got going on there. They want me to let you keep going.
I'm heated.
I mean, Dave comes up with some good points. I mean. I thought the other way. I thought the aliens were kind of like not nearly as powerful as they are normally portrayed, because she takes out with a gun like a half a dozen of them and doesn't get a drop of acid on her. So that's something which is in the context of the story doesn't make sense. But again, if we did that, then everybody's going to be dead in the first issue, and then that's it. It's a one shot. So. I understand that they had to do things to prolong it a little bit, but and the fact that they didn't have a backstory, well, the ranchers didn't know that either, so we were in the same boat. They just knew that they were being attacked, and that's the fact.
You know what? With this book kind of showcases why I'm personally not a big horror movie fan, because you show up to the horror movie and the person who's on the poster and why everyone shows up is. Whoever the killer is, Jason, Michael Myers, Freddy, right? So everyone shows up for that guy. But then you can't make the movie all about the killer. You have to make the movie about a group of fucking morons that you don't care about, because the killer needs someone to kill. And those movies end up being just like Genome did it. It was actually really funny and cool. Genome's review on Friday the 13th that he recently did. But yeah, you're following around a bunch of dickheads but you want to see Jason chop some fools up. And same thing here, Alien versus Predator. You know, the ranchers are not on the cover of those comics. That's not what's selling this comic. That, you know, what's showing on Metarog's screen right now is what's selling the comics. Predator alien beef. So let's worry less about the humans' peril and what they have going on, and let's just hang out with the predators and aliens more.
All right.
All right. So what say the chat here on the story? If you've read it or you just want to form your opinion based on what we've said here, give us your best shot. Is it too wordy? Yeah, I believe that the first issue and a half is a little bit too wordy. But like anything else, you know, even the original Alien movie, that was a lot of dialogue before we even saw an alien. So it kind of set itself up. Or are you in Dave's camp? Hey, this guy, just because he's a head honcho, he got to write it, but he didn't know what the heck he's doing. He's absolutely lost. This guy couldn't write, you know, Clifford the Red Dog. You know what I mean? What do you say?
Let's get some grades there.
Got my
we got a 2 from Tomb of Comics. Okay, he's grading Magnus versus Predator 4.5. We're not doing that, Mike. We're doing this one. Let's see. Comic Collector says 3 because I haven't read it.
He said it wasn't fair to give it anything less because he hasn't read it. So
technically 2.5 is down the middle, but it's okay.
And Kachun said 2. I think that's
Simeon comes with a 2 as well.
Simeon comes in with a 2.
I'm a collector with 3.
So we got two 2s, a 3, and a 2. Right? So 2 2s and 2 3s, I think.
That gets us to 2.25, which will leave us with. Oh, hold on.
You guys need to go back and read this again.
2. Hold on. I can adapt for Kachun's 4. That rounds. Let's see. No, okay, hold on. All right.
4.
That's 4. Just picking up the ones that are popping down. Oh, the story was 2. Okay. So basically, yeah, it came into like a 2.
Okay, 2 on the story, a little below average.
Yep. It's kind of in keeping with the scores. So, all right. So now that we have got to the story, we're gonna get to the part that the salt monster over here has been chomping at the bit for, and that's going to be the interior art. So to start with the interior art tonight, we're going to start with let's go with a rational mind. Metarog, please tell us what you think about the interior art of this book.
Well, you may not think so, Gino, when you get my grade. The interior art was the weakest point of this book to me. Listen, on the covers, I think you have some artistic license. So, you know, I think he did a pretty good job when it was a static cover, right? But when I look at the art inside, you know, it's kind of like cartoony. The colors are so weird. They're either so bright, but I understand that that's the planet, right? But they're so bright that the combinations that they use just don't make sense. It's hard to get definition now. And some of the expressions, I mean, there are some where you don't even see like a mouth. You just see like a mustache. It lacks some definition. The parts that I did like is that he does do machinery well. This is Norwood, I do believe. He does do the machinery pretty well. I'm impressed with the bigger machineries. They're good detail. He has like company names on there. But again, we got these cliched characters with the cowboy hats. I understand it's a sunny environment, so you want to have head protection. But everybody it's just kind of like frumpy, you know. There's not like a variety in body types, or if there is, they're kind of like smushed. And again, it kind of changes from one to the other. Again, I do like his machinery. I think those are very well done. But especially in the later issues, some of the color schemes, like purple on black, um, it just doesn't make any sense to me. That one is actually not that terrible. Let me see. I think it's this one here. The inking here is also just, you know, some of it looks almost like rubbed out, like he erased it and then he changed his mind and he went back, and it almost has like a shimmering effect. But look at this. Look how dark, you know, this is here. That you can't tell almost the different shade between the Predator and the aliens here. And look at this here. Look at those. Is that a Medusa? I mean, just a very weird kind of effect there with the art. And the aliens just really don't look that good. They don't look that menacing. They look more just like shadowy than menacing. I would have liked something sharp, in your face, you know, something dramatic, something that'll scare the you know what's off you. I didn't really get that from this issue. I got more of a, it's okay in some parts, but you know, the conveyance of action is okay, nothing spectacular. But again, look how smush this looks here. You know, it's like did they put his head in a vice? I mean, it looks weird. You know. Now the last issue, I believe, was by a different artist. And it's a little bit better. But again, you know, look, purple on purple there. You know, couldn't you have done a better background to, you know, accentuate the aliens here? Just really weird color choices. I understand that he wants to perhaps convey a sense of dread and darkness and brooding and hopelessness, but it just doesn't work. It just gets lost. This is actually a better perspective. Look at the size of the Predator next to the human. A much better perspective there, but that's a static shot. But when there's anything else around, they get lost, you know. So again, just not a fan. It just did not work for me. It wasn't that effective to convey the story or the action. The static shots are okay. The machinery is good. The space shots were pretty good. But the bulk of the story was too dark, too muddled, and just didn't have the sharpness that I would have liked in a story like this. I am a fan of Predator and Aliens. But part of being a fan is to actually see them in detail, or at least in a way that they can be interpreted as menacing and as frightful and as strong. And I just did not get that. Just did not convey through the art. So I have to give this Genome, and I'm stretching it, a 2.
All right, a grudging 2 from Metarog. Yeah, that puts it a little bit below, average, but not quite into Liefeld territory. So I feel somewhat vindicated. I like that. So I'll go ahead and take the reins for the next one, going in some sort of random particular order. It's not really random, believe me. I'm going to be a little more forgiving, but this actually gets the weakest score for me. And let me caveat it a little bit. These are busy books. I mean, there are panels upon panels, but not anything too extraordinary small. So you have to. There's a great shot right there of hanging up there. But I mean, there's a lot of people and things going on. So I'll give them some slack for not having too much background detail in some of the shots. I don't think it was entirely Phil's fault on the interior pencils. The colors and inks are really, really low ball. These are bad. There's so much either bleed over or they don't even fill into the line to the edge of the creature or whatever. There's shadowing all through there. It looks almost like, I can't probably show it to you on here. It won't show up, but it'll look like there's a shadow hanging in the air behind them because the inks are so bad. So I don't know if there was printing problems or what with some of these, but I don't think the interior art is really that bad. I think the colors and the inks really kind of killed it. And it makes them look a lot less defined. But I mean, you got a couple page spreads like this. That's hard to get good action shots, working on backgrounds, getting everyone's facial expression just right. But I mean, it's competent. I mean, I've seen a hell of a lot worse books, but I mean, that's not really an excuse for it. My biggest gripe, though, is it's already been mentioned, is I don't like the way the Predators are drawn too well. They seem just a little too stubby. But there is a good shot like there when you saw Broken Tusk holding up the dead doctor. I think that's in the 4th one. So, there's some good shots like that. There's a really good shot of, I love this scene right here at the very beginning where he's fighting him off on this breaking away. It's like a 50s disaster movie or whatever, fighting the aliens on this walkway, gangway that he's hanging on for. I mean, there's some good action shots inside of when he fights. I mean, that's pretty sweet right there. You see what's going on. Then in the very next panel, it shows like the head laying on the ground. That's pretty cool. I'm going the wrong way here, but I mean, yeah, there's some faraway shots. It's not the most detailed. This is not Jim Lee, obviously, but and yeah, it does kind of reek a little bit of a storyboard there. It's like kind of just do the bare minimum to get by, so the reader knows what's going on, but don't spend overly too much time on this. And this guy, who knows if he's ever worked a comic meeting before? I couldn't find anything else he's actually done. So he might not know the time constraints or what the publisher is expecting out of him. So I'll cut him a little slack, but I can't cut slack to the inks and the colors, which ruin, I think, what could be a really great experience. Because most of the stuff I can see clearly, I think looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a little above average. I'm going to give it 3.5 for the art, but definitely the lowest score for me. And it's pretty consistent through all of the books, even when they changed artists in the last one, they kept it pretty similar. I will say that like Noguchi's face and even color seemed to change sometimes in the same book. It was kind of weird. Like she'd be like a patchy tan at one point, and then she'd go to like peach color like a couple of pages later. So they should definitely work on their consistency a little more. But I love some of the action shots when there was actually action going on. So yeah, 3.5 for me on the interior art.
Yeah, the coloring here would have gotten a 1 from me, and only because it's the most horrible coloring job I've ever seen. I mean, Marie Severin would have pumped this up to a 3 just by herself.
I mean, let's see. It was Monica something, right? Monica Livingston was the colorist, and the inker was Carl Story. But yeah, I just couldn't believe how bad it was. Like, didn't they look at the storyboard? Didn't they look at the storyboards? Didn't the editor get in there and look? And it's like, okay, wait a minute, you got to fill in the lines, So it was just bad. That they should have made the aliens a little more black. They're a little bit purplish, but maybe they wanted to stand out in detail a little more. But once again, why bother putting details on if you're not going to ink them?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. They're contradicting their own strategy if that's the case.
So yeah, I probably should actually make that a 3. I'm not going to blame the artist on the interior art, though. I think the art is pretty analogous to what's going on in the covers inside. Some loss in quality here, but for such long and expansive books that have a lot of stuff going on, I'll give them a little bit of slack there. So yeah, 3.5. So okay, here's the moment everyone's been waiting for. Is Yukon Jack ready over there, or
Great, buddy.
should I go and hook my earphones now? So I'm going to go ahead and turn the salt mic over to Mr. Miracle. And Dave, tell us what you think about the interior art.
My mommy always said there wasn't monsters, but there are.
I just call you Newt now, or what?
Right. This interior art, and I am blaming the artist. Oh my God, the inker too. What a piece of whole garbage. Like you say, it's the inker's fault, but if you look at these aliens, they're not even in any way. Like their ribs are this, and they look like they're going that way and stuff. And I'm a big fan of H.R. Geiger. I really enjoy that man's art, and he would be appalled seeing an alien drawn like this. If I was the artist on this book, I would be embarrassed if you saw this, because this is childish. This looks like a book that me and my friends used to draw when I was in grade 8. Like if you tell me this is a professional artist, and I'm a little wary of that. So much unevenness. Like you said, the faces change from not just from page to page. There were literally times in this comic book where I had to go back and say, is that a different guy? Because he looks so much different, right? Like this mean rancher cowboy guy, he looks like a leprechaun he looks like a leprechaun with a cowboy hat with a red beard, and then other times he looks like maybe Rick Grimes, and then other times it's just like, where is it going with all of this stuff, man? And I mean, the cover is probably the best he could do, so the interior is just dog shit, like just terrible. I was reading this, and like either this is way over inked so you can't see nothing, or there's no inking at all, so there's no shadows, and everybody just looks so flat, like they're just pressed against the comic page. And then there's different weird perspectives where like where they show like a big kind of background scene, and then all the stuff in the midground he makes out of focus, and then the background's in focus, and the foreground's in focus, and I'm like, what the fuck? It makes it looks. Sorry, I shouldn't swear so much. I get so worked up about this guy because like you're just like that looks really really weird. Like if you know how things work, right? Your eyes don't get as much light from distant or from objects at a distance, right? So they look a little out of focus. But if you have midground stuff out of focus, background stuff in focus, and then foreground stuff in focus, that's not how eyes work. And it looks really, really weird to your brain, right? And if you have absolutely no shadows, I understand it's like a desert planet, but you have to have some shadow, a little bit, right? It'll just make it makes everything look pressed right against the whole comic panel. It's like no sense of depth at all in most of this stuff. And then all of a sudden it's just like, I'm going to shadow the living hell out of this one, and just goes nuts. Like you can't even see that panel. It's so shadowed out. And then the next panel, everything's all washed out. It's like, what are you guys doing here? All three of them, the inker, the colorist, the penciler, are no good. And even here in this last issue, where they do have a different interior penciler. Sorry, what's this gentleman's name again? Chris Warner. Not a fan, right? Doesn't get any better in this one. Matter of fact, I think he's actually might be a little worse. Like it's just like at least I think Chris is at least he kind of does a better job of conveying. He does a better job of conveying like action, right? So it was good that he kind of got the big Predator fight one. But I mean, just look at that Predator. Like it looks like the Predator gained like 90 pounds all of a sudden. And then the next panel, he's lost it. Must have went on Slim Fast. Anyway, big fat one. That's all I'm giving it on that one.
All right, one for Mr. Miracle. Well, it is consistent at least. I think, let's see, between all your scores so far, you have less than my score for the interior art total. So let's go ahead and see if Mr. Kenny over there agrees. Macho Head, what do you think about the interior art on this book?
Interior art. So one thing that struck me when I first started reading this book is that it is true that it barely looks professional. Like it looks a bit amateur-ish because the rendering is pretty low, on a lot of the people. Shadowing's really low, so I agree with that. Everything just kind of looks like stickers. So I think that most of the people and the faces, like you said, change from person to person a lot. The skin color, they don't know what skin color the main character is. She changes all the time. So that stuff's not good. But I do think that Metarog made a great point, something that I wrote down too, of this guy, he shines pretty good on mechanical stuff. Like structures and building, things that have no soul, he's pretty good at. But anything that requires some kind of life, it comes off quite stiff. The color palette is odd to me. I mean, I guess they wanted to make it, because they went the route of like avoiding primary colors, and doing a lot of the secondary colors, kind of like Watchmen did. Watchmen did that trick where they just totally went with like the yellow, purple, orange, green palette, and it kind of subverts the normal bold colors we see in like a DC comic. And you got the Justice League, and it's all boom, red, blue, and stuff like that. But it wasn't very effective. In this book, I found the palette to be a little odd. So, like, see that? I mean, I guess that building's not that bad. There's some decent detail in it, but the characters just don't look great for me. So when you go to, one thing that he definitely doesn't draw well is action. Like bodies in motion and fighting and action is no bueno. Like this is the guy, because this is when he's what role am I? There we go. Yeah, this is when he's like, hey, what's up? Sexual harassment. And then she throws him. I guess that's a little taste that she's Rambo. She like throws him out, and whoops. Well, like that. God damn it. That looks a little goofy to me. Oh shit! I didn't even get to how lame the Predators look. The Predators look bad. That's the biggest disappointment, is that the Predators don't look cool, and that's a bummer. The Predators don't look cool. They look like bulky Ninja Turtles type thing, and that's kind of sad. And then one of the biggest failures was like towards the end, like when she turns into badass mode. That's when she first reveals herself as, "Hey guys, by the way, I'm a master of samurai predator assassin." Like, I didn't know it was her, because there's a rancher who's kind of a badass, and I thought it was the rancher was like stepping up to the plate because it seemed so out of character for her to do that. But like, that's her, but then that's her again. So you can see they don't really look like the same person, you know? So it was very confusing. So with all that being said, it came to a 1.5, and that's all I have to say about that.
So 1.5 from Comic Head. So pretty universally low scores from most of the people. So let's go ahead and turn this over to Chat. Chat, what do you think about the interior art of these books here? Is it as painful as Dave says, or is it as, what's my word again? I like to use it's serviceable, like this Dave says.
Yeah.
So is it awful or serviceable? Let us know what you think in the chat here, and we will get you a nice aggregate going.
Terrible interior art. Oh my. Like, yeah, man. Fat predators and wonky xenomorphs, and then people that are like chameleons. They're just changing left, right. And
let's put this to you while we're getting scores. Who would you like to have seen do the art for this books?
Let me see. Anybody else? Like,
a little more esoteric.
Anybody else? It's just awful. Like, Dark Horse at this time, not a small comic company. They could have easily afforded a real artist to come and do this. Like, I don't know why they picked a storyboarding guy. It just doesn't make sense. Like, why not pick a pick a proper comic book artist and go with it, right?
I'm thinking like Will Spartacio, I think, would do well with Aliens and Think. I think.
Yeah.
And he's pretty good at torsos and all that, so maybe he could do a good Predator. I'm just spitballing there while waiting for scores.
Maybe a little Barry Windsor Smith.
I would have liked to see Brian Boland. I think he would have done an awesome Alien because of the detail that he puts into the little, the little sconces and things on the crown, and the way he conveys action. I think he would have been. I mean, obviously he's going to be expensive, but man, he would have done this justice for sure.
Yeah,
who did a lot of the art during Alan Moore's Swamp Thing series?
Bernie Wright.
Was that Bissett?
Bernie Wrightson.
Bernie Wright.
Peter later one, right?
Because I know Swamp Thing always looked pretty badass in those, and sometimes there'd be some kind of like other creatures in there. You need to have a guy that can definitely draw, like, good at drawing monsters and creatures, in detail, and get the proportions nice. Make them look big and intimidating, and gnarly looking, grotesque almost. When a predator takes his mask off, they look like really clean in this, but you want them to just look fierce and like kind of grotesque,
Yeah, I would have liked to seen like a Bernie Wrightson issue. There's so much detail they would have got right in there with the gore and everything, right?
Yeah. No, that would be the dream there.
I don't think we're gonna need the calculator for this. Looks like it's gonna be about a 1.5 from chat as well.
1.5.
Any more chat scores?
Yep. Last chance before we move on to the next. We're getting down to the home stretch now.
I am an artist.
Team of Comics.
Like crack at the series. Team of Comics says he could like a crack at it.
All right, but you have to use the same inkers. So, all right.
Forget it.
I've seen Team of Comics drawing. I would have rather had him draw it.
I would rather have this in black and white than the colorist. Honestly, it would have made much more effective.
I watched Team of Comics draw Superman.
I don't know what you guys. Did any of you guys else get 0? I know Dave got what, 0, didn't you?
Am I allowed to give a 0?
No, you got the 0 issue, didn't you?
Oh no, I never got the 0 issue.
Here's the 0. Here's an idea of how 0 issue was drawn. The whole thing is like this, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, that's way better.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's a pretty interesting effect when the book is better sans inks, but this is the same artist. So I mean, it's pretty detailed if you look down there and all that. So I'm not going to completely defend it, but I'm saying it did look pretty good as a black and white.
Yeah,
I thought so.
It does actually look better black and white for sure.
But I'd have to go in there and take a good look at that, because maybe you're just showing me the 3 best panels. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just picked a random one. Let's pick another one, shall we? Let's see here.
What is that? Is that just a 0 issue?
Yeah, it's kind of I think it came out around. Someone was saying it came out after the second issue came out. I'm not why they did like this, but this is a prologue issue. This basically gives you
Yeah, no, there's a
storyboard. There's actually no. It's all on a predator ship, so there's no dialogue between them at all. It's just kind of them establishing hierarchy and what they're doing. But they actually kind of cleverly intersperse it with a conversation that 2 space freighter pilots are having, kind of making analogous, I think, with like bees or ants or something like that. Something like that kind of explains what the predators are doing in an offhand way. So it was kind of a cool kind of prologue there. But all right, let's go ahead and all spitballing aside, let's go ahead and move on to the second last category, and that is concept. Basically, did the book do something different? Was it a first of? Was it a new character? Was it a new concept like, say, Crisis on Infinite Earths or something like that? So I'm going to go ahead and lead this one off. Concept is, for me, easily the top. Now, when I score concept, I don't always score how effective it actually was. I score a lot of times on just how high of an idea it was. Sometimes, though, it's the other way around, like on, say, X-Force 1. It's like, the concept was great. Wasn't a good book, but it moved a ton of copies. But so with all that being said, this definitely easily gets the highest score for me. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, it gets a perfect score for me. What can you do better with a property that's fairly popular, right? You write good books, good art. So maybe if you don't do that, you just stick it with another good property, right? So how can you go wrong? You take 2 of the biggest, almost only sci-fi horror icons and you mash them together into a book. It's brilliant. It's like G.I. Joe versus Transformers, or I don't know what, Tarzan versus King Kong. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, you take 2 established cool properties, which Dark Horse had done before very well in the past, usually in like Dark Horse Presents and in small snippets or whatever. But so it's just, I think it's a great idea. I mean, Dark Horse being a smaller company definitely needed some bigger stuff. They had a lot of really weird titles back then, so it was kind of hard for them to move. They did have Mobius, I think, at that point, so he alone could sell some books. But I mean, outside of that, there was a really niche market. So when you put something out here, 2 characters who have Hollywood movies attached to them, yeah, you're gonna move some print. So companies like Dark Horse need infusions of money. So hey, they sat together in the room. It's like, what can we do to make some money, guys? Okay, let's take Aliens Prayer and let's just mash them together and see what happens. So I think how this was how it was born, and it just worked. I mean, it obviously sold a lot. I mean, for Dark Horse, I don't know what the exact numbers were, but it's probably their best-selling. It had to be their best-selling issues of that year, or maybe that decade. Who knows? But and actually, after this series came out, is when they started mashing up a lot of other characters. And so it actually got a little redundant after that. But just a great idea, man. What cooler? And it actually added a lot to the mythos, because we didn't know much about the predator species either. I mean, nothing basically about the alien species, but we didn't really know a whole lot about the predator species. They come to Earth, they hunt humans. Before that, I don't think there was any other expanded universe written about them. After this came out, there was novel upon novel written about it. I've actually read it. There's a book that follows this one with Miss Noguchi, but she goes on to a ship that's actually shown in the prologue book, in the 0 book, and goes out and starts hunting with them, which is kind of funny and strange at the same time. But so yeah, I think it was just a great idea for concept. Say what you will about the interior art, writing, and the execution of the overall product, but I just think it was a great idea. I don't know how much the licenses cost them, probably a pretty penny. But yeah, just a great concept. I'm gonna go ahead and have to give that a 5. Oh, also I like how they didn't just like package it in like one big book. They broke it out into 4 issues. Also wise. Gives them a chance to stretch their legs a bit for covers. So, yep, gonna have to go good and give that a perfect 5.
Cinco.
Wow.
All right, so Jay did jiltings aside here. We're gonna go ahead and go to Dave. Dave, what did you think about the concept of this book? I know you have great love for at least one set of these characters, so let's not think about exactly what happened to them, but let's just think about the concept itself of the book. What do you think?
Yeah, we'll put all that stuff aside, bad art and whatever else. The concept itself was pretty strong, right? It's like you said, you take the 2 heavyweight alien properties of the 80s, put them in a big like a match together. That's got to sell books. I know that that's the only reason this sells books, because 12-year-old boys walked in there, Aliens versus Predator. I want to read that, right? Because it was a good concept. Loses it a little bit because of the settings they put this into, and not really, like that whole cowboy thing. I just thought it was just way too cliche. And then having this Asian girl just suddenly be a ninja was like a little cliche, because she was like going to be the hero. And I just thought, this is typical, man. This is just like, oh, we'll have all these alien stuff going on, and then we'll have our protagonist be this girl, this human, right? The humans are going to eventually be the best and win, right? And it's just so cliche, man. I can't. I like putting those 2 properties together. Yeah, that brought that up for me, but the cliche add-ons to the concept that just irked me way too much. And yeah, I'm gonna, but I'll be generous. I'll give it like right down the middle, 2.5.
Boom. Stellar grade.
All right.
Miracle.
The far and away the highest score so far for Mr. Miracle. We have middle of the road 2.5. It was grudging, but he gave it. I like that. So he can put his bias aside from the packaging, which he didn't care for at all, and just took a look at the overall concept, which I think most people can agree is pretty cool. So, but don't believe what I say. Believe what Kenny says. Kenny, what do you think about the overall concept of this book?
So I have a question, because this will kind of, let's see. So Aliens versus Predator, is this comic book is the first time that ever happened?
No.
So Aliens versus Predator happened in what, novel form before, or movie form before?
In Dark Horse Presents number 36, I believe.
Oh, so okay. So this premise was already done. So they didn't come up with Aliens versus Predator. They just jacked it. Okay.
I think it's the same writer, Randy.
Yeah,
Probably same writer, same publisher, and all that.
Yeah, same publisher,
Okay.
same company. They just
Got it.
that was sort of a prototype, I guess. Dark Horse Presents was sort of their, think of it like a showcase title.
Sure. Okay. So, but Dark Horse Comics is the first one to execute Aliens versus Predator. That was never done before.
Oh yeah.
Dark Horse did it.
Correct.
All right. Well, I'll give them the same, even if if it was the same team, fine. I just wanted to see if they were just mimicking this thing that already happened. But all right, so they had the wherewithal to come up with Aliens versus Predator and mash up those 2 popular properties. Pretty cool. I'd say it's a good idea, because I feel like it's synonymous now. Alien versus Predator. I think there's been like some video games on it, and the whole 9 movies. So shit, man, they really started some pitting these 2 characters together. So good stuff. I think it should be ripe for action omania. It didn't pan out that way, but it's ripe for someone to really knock it out the park. I guess, as far as what you'd call concept, I guess we have to give some of what happened in the book concept. And I think to come up with this, I think the way to go, because the Predators are supposed to be very intellectual beings, right? They're not dummies. They're quite smart. So like, I think
high tech. Yeah.
Yeah, high tech, the whole bit, and maybe the aliens, they might be smart, but they're kind of more the savage type, I believe. So I say, when you got this, just forget the humans, make them very minimal, and follow I wish they would have just followed the Predators. And hey, how many books do we have those little brackets translated from French, translated from Italian. Hey, it's translated from Predator language. Easy enough. Let them
There you go.
communicate. Let me. That's how I'm going to care about One Tooth or whatever. Is I want to know what's on the motherfucker's mind. Why is he betraying his brothers? That must be a heavy moment. If we could follow what's going on in his mind and what led up to that, this book would be way better than it is. Like, don't treat them like, because that's why, like my point about the horror movies, like we go there for those characters, but we're never in their head. We never know what they're thinking. Like, humans are overrated, brother. I want to see some predators. What's on their mind? That's interesting to me. Not a group of bozos at the base. Anyway, so I got to take that towards points off on the concept, because they should have known you make the predator the hero and you make the alien the villain, period. So, but hey, that's pretty. Props for them being the first ones to do Alien versus Predators. So they get a little bit above middle of the road. I'm gonna make it 3.5. I'm gonna give them 3.5 for shit. They almost earn a 4. Now I'm gonna stick with what I wrote. 3.5 for concept.
All right, 3.5, but above average there. You know, there is a. Oh, here we go. Now we got two comics playing the game here.
That's a good one. Is that all aliens quotes you guys are saying?
There is a school of thought that some people think that actually Predator 2 was what laid the groundwork for this movie, because if you look in the scene toward the end there when he's putting one of the human skulls up, you have what looks like an alien skull, a xenomorph skull up there. So some people think that's where the idea was born, but it was years after that this book came out. So just kind of spitballing out there. But all right, so we got one more esteemed reviewer to go through. Mr. Metarog, what did you think about the concept of this book? Was it good? Was it great? Was it horrid? Tell us, please.
Well, as I think I stated, I'm a huge fan of both these franchises. Alien and Aliens, to me, are some of the best duo horror, sci-fi, high concept films in existence. And Predator 1 was also very well done. And again, it made me hunger for more, right? So as I was talking to, noting with Kachun, you know, when you're a fan of these two franchises, it's a natural marriage. Because you have, I think, Kenny, like you have the hunter, you know, with the tech and the skill and the precision, and then you have the savagery and you have the instinctual horror of the alien. And of course, Predator wants to be challenged. He wants to hunt the ultimate prey, and that's definitely the xenomorphs. So I think it's a no-brainer that this was going to be successful, because you're taking, you know, fanboys like me, and you're combining chocolate with, you know, apple pie or whatever. You know, two really incredible things make an even more incredible, you know, amalgamation. So to me, the concept is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I think Kenny said, you know, I played the shoot 'em up game in the arcades. I saw these films in the theater the first weekend they were out, including Predator 2, which I didn't think it was as bad as a lot of people, you know, put it out to be. But obviously they pale before the Alien and Aliens movie. So to me, the concept is it's a brilliant amalgamation of two incredibly successful and very cutting edge franchises. I don't like the way they presented it, though, in this series. And I think it's been talked about before. I didn't get, you know, the aliens that I really know about. I didn't get those guys that hid in every corner and one could take out battalions. It seemed like you needed like 10 of them to take out one human. You know, so that the way that the story came out, that they used the concept, was substandard. They had gold here and they turned it kind of into bronze. And because of that, I fault the publisher, because this is a franchise which is an absolute hit. Even if you put junk on there, it's going to sell. So again, brilliant concept, the execution substandard, overall 3.5.
All right, 3.5. So some higher scores here and some improvement, I see. At least the concept seems to be doing fairly well, above average. So what say you, chat? What do you think about the concept of this book? Was it a great one? Was it just a cash grab? I guess that still counts for a good concept.
Depending on your
Was there
perspective.
promise that was unfulfilled? I mean, so what did y'all think? It, it's hard to say because like the first movie, like the first Aliens, and Predator were such good movies, man. And it's not just from a nerd standpoint. If you watch those movies with just an eye for cinematography, for storytelling, action, and all stuff, they're just good movies, man. I mean, get them out of the horror genre and put them in drama or something, and they still do well. You know, so it's pretty hard to realize a comic book on properties that are so well known for their adult themes, you know. And that's one thing though. I will say I'm glad that Dark Horse got a hold of them rather than like Marvel or DC, because those guys wouldn't have done it justice. I don't think at all. they'd have made it so saccharine sweet that it would have been bad. So let's see, we got some scores rolling in here. Oh yeah, we got the Magnus. I think that was a 2-part series, wasn't it? Magnus vs. Predator. I think that
Predator is the one that I've seen a bunch of times and really enjoyed. To be honest, I don't think I've seen the first Alien. I think I've only seen Aliens.
They're both good.
You gotta see it, buddy.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Never like, because I remember watching the Aliens one and I liked it, but the Predator one really captured the imagination. My boy Schwarzenegger in the whole bit. So I was a big Predator guy, but yeah, I'm not as familiar with Aliens. I'll say that.
That whole
Alien,
scene.
I believe, is an improvement because the first one was lower budget, but it's definitely a nerve-wracking. I don't think I've ever seen a more nerve-wracking film than that one.
Yeah, they're very different films, but they're both very good.
Yeah,
like one's really suspenseful, like horror kind of thriller. The other one's like a kick-ass action movie.
Yeah,
my wife had never actually seen Aliens. I think it's about 6-7 years ago. So I sat her down and it's like, all right, let's watch this thing. At the end of it, she's like, she kind of looked at me. She's like, that was tense. I was like, yeah, man, this movie was 20 years old and it's still tense if you watch it this day. Lighting was good. There's always a sense of dread going on. It's a little more action, or a lot more action oriented than the first Alien, but it's just good. And then you go out and watch crap like Prometheus or Covenant, and it's like, oh, what are you doing?
You know, I didn't think Prometheus was that bad. I didn't think it was nearly as bad as a lot of people think.
I didn't mind Prometheus as much as I minded Covenant.
I haven't seen Covenant yet, but I thought Prometheus. I mean, when I first saw it, I was like, yeah, I didn't like it. But when I went back and I started looking at what they were trying to accomplish, I thought it was actually better than average.
It's an interesting change on the mythos. I like the idea of aliens just being completely unknown and not knowing where they come from and how they got to where they're going. But I mean, really,
like what the hell is that?
Yeah, anyway. I do like Fassbender as David, though. I think he's really good. But other than that, I don't like the films at all.
Magneto.
Yeah,
but it's Fassbender. He's good no matter what you put him in. That's Fassbender. He's going to be good no matter what you put him in.
Yeah, he's amazing, actually. He's
good,
all right, so the scores are lessening up here. So I don't know if we're losing people's interest or they just were so outraged at these scores that you quit writing. But it looks like we have about a 4 on average here.
Yeah, let's say 4
concept from people.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and get to the home stretch here. Let us talk about the overall scores and just briefly go over why you gave it to them. So we'll go ahead and start at the top of the order again. Mr. Marigold, please give us your overall score and let us know what you think.
Regardless of the concept, because it was so poorly executed, the covers suck. The interior art is amateurish. The dialogue is wooden and boring. The story is cliche. The action sequences in the book are flat and don't convey very much of any kind of action. Things are either over inked or not inked at all. Lots of real issues with anatomy, with consistency. I'm going to take a little page from my man at Comic Kid 84 and fucking out of here with that fucking thing, man. These books are getting filed.
I've never done it that aggressively, for the record.
These books are getting filed in the recycling bin. I am not putting these stinkers into my collection. I would be embarrassed if anybody came around and, hey, you've got Aliens versus Predator. No, don't look at that. Oh, it's like your ugly cousin. You know, something, I don't know. It's just, I can't do it. No, these guys are out of here. I'm overall uno.
Ooh, rough.
All right,
Rough.
rather unsurprising score here coming in from up north. But hey, what are you gonna do, right?
Smack that thing. That was awesome.
Yeah, he tagged in that one out. So
You made a lot of
Interesting
fans tonight, Dave. Though you made a lot of fans.
yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
You're like,
This is what we do in Graders Knows. We don't mince words, man. We
we
come
don't.
to Rumble.
Yeah, just keep it real. Yes.
Come to Rumble, man.
All right, so it's maybe coming for a less aggressive approach. Comic 4, what do you think about the overall, grade on this book? Thoughts?
Yeah, man. I mean, overall, I did not find it to be a good outing. It was kind of a slog a little bit. It wasn't, it wasn't my cup of tea, I had some appreciation for it. Like I wouldn't give it all like straight ones, like a straight dog shit, but it's like, it's not dog shit, but it's like dog food. It's like, it's still not good, but it's not tasty, So anyway, cover, I gave it 2.5, which was really down the middle because there are a couple cool ones. Interior art was a bit rough. I gave that a 2 because, even though the faces changed a lot, there actually was a decent amount of expression throughout, which I'm not mad at that, but it really looked like amateur hour, and everyone just looked like different people as you turn the pages, and the action was really rough. The writing, that was the biggest low point for me, was I did not care about a single character in this whole series. I could care less. I wish they all died at the end. So that's what got the 1.5 from me. The concept got a 3.5. So at the end of the day, I hang my hat on a 2. I think this 2 is a good description for this book. It's below average. So 2. 2 is my overall.
All right, 2 it is. Yeah, we are definitely moving into X-Force territory here. Look at this. All right. So 2. Hey, you doubled Dave's score. So Metarog, what do you think about this series overall?
Well, I really wanted to like this series because, as I said, I am just such a big fan of both these franchises. And no matter what, I mean, I think the covers are serviceable, to use your definition. Some of them are quite outstanding, but they really needed something more grandiose to grab. Even though this concept is a no-brainer, you can't rely on the laurels of what happened before on the past. You have to take the bull by the horns. You have to up the ante. You have to man up, and you have to rise above. And they didn't do anything near that. I gave the cover a 3 because, again, I think a couple of them are very well done, but they should have been much better designed and much more impactful. The story, I didn't have as much trouble as Dave and Kenny had with the story because, I mean, I wish that the humans were not quite as central, and that wasn't so verbose in that first issue, and it wasn't so politically inclined. But I understand that they wanted to tell a story, through the supporting characters also. They did not do that great a job of it, but I didn't think it was horrid. I thought it was average. I gave it a little bit above average only because there's certain nuggets in there that I think worked, including the broken tusk character. I thought he was the central character, and that he did have the ability to change and reason. And I sort of see the corporation in the future being like the big entity, and that the overtones of that in the story. I kind of gave it a little bit of credit for that, but it could have been so much so much better and so much more involved without having the humans as the more central characters. The art is where it really, I have a big problem with it. It doesn't work to me really on any level. It's very mushy. It's very inexact. The action is not well done, except for the static scenes and the machinery. It just does not convey the story well. Everything gets lost in the horrible color palette that they have there, and the inking is very smudgy and just very undefined. And that's really what really took this down for me. The concept, again, no brainer. I don't think anybody could have said, "Oh, this is not going to be successful." You got two incredibly successful franchises, So yeah, it's going to be successful, but it's not like transcendent, unfortunately. So I give that a 3.5. But overall, I put this as straight average, and I'm being generous because I am just such a fan. So 2.5.
All right, 2.5 from Medrog. We're slowly climbing out of the doldrums. Excellent little rendition there. I guess I will go ahead and get into what I did. Okay, so I'm going to break a little bit with straight harsh statistics and give you an actual score of what I think this book is worth now. I'll tell you going in, this is like one of my favorite books of all time. Back when I was 15 years old, 14 years old. My eyes are different now. I look for a little more depth in things and a little more keeping with the overall premise. A lot of that this book fails to do it, but I won't fault the cover art. I have no problem at all with the cover art. Some of my colleagues here did. I don't think it's bad. I think it's really, really quite good on a lot of stuff. Like I said, once again, it's not Lee, it's it's not Bagley, nothing like that, but it works for me. I like it. I like most of the shots. Those I think hold up really well for me. I gave the story 3.5. In all honesty, it's more like a 3 probably. I kind of break a little bit. As much as I hate all the dialogue, I do like the fact that they did at least try to flesh out the characters somewhat. It may have been wood and it may have been robotic, but I mean, at least they tried, I guess. Since they were decided to make the humans, which was a mistake, so much of a central character to this book, at least they tried to give them something and gave them some motivation for being there and doing what they're doing. It mostly faltered, but so I gave it a little bit higher score than I probably should have. But for the interior art, once again, I thought it was solid for the most part, except for the inks and colors. Oh, just awful. It just ruined the interior so much. Could have been used a little more detail or a lot more detail on a lot of the backgrounds. But once again, that was a little more on the serviceable side. The concept was just a no-brainer. I think I gave that one a 5 just because I think it was a great one. I mean, how many more books? Was this their biggest selling series of all time? I don't know if it is. It's got to be up there. So just a good concept. Take two popular properties and throw them together and see what happens and see who buys. So people bought. This is a good one. So my aggregate wound up being around a 3.5. I'm going to take the rose-tinted glasses off and drop that down to a 3. Middle of the road, a lot of flaws, does some things really well. And I still think the overall product is a little better than the sum of its parts. It just, I don't know. I mean, I still like to read it every now and then. I don't, I remember it being some great magnum opus before, and it's definitely not that. The older, more jaded self of me can see a lot of its shortcomings. So I'd be remiss if I gave it anything higher than middle of the road. So I'm going to go ahead and go just with the 3 and call it a day at that. All right. So chat, what do you think? What do you give this overall experience of Aliens vs. Predator? Was it just simply a aggregate score, or was there a little something else that either gave it a higher or lower score in your eyes? So, we got the Magnus vs. Predator.
Hey, can I ask you guys a quick off-related question? Yeah. I just picked up this this lot of these Silver Age Thor books, and I don't have Silver Age bags, right? So modern size bags, and I just tried to slid one of them into the current size bag and board. it doesn't look like it's really stressing the book or bowing anything, but it does look a little tight. Do you guys ever store Silver Age stuff in a current, or is this bad news?
That's bad news, man.
You get
Yeah.
around the edges and everything, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're gonna get spinal.
Yeah, little by little, that will roll up.
It'll like bow it right like that.
It'll bow,
Well,
yeah.
needs a little room in there.
Yeah, you need to remember the board should be a little bit bigger than the comic, and it looks there like it's almost parallel. So you're gonna get little indentations and
Yeah, like you want to see a little bit of board around.
There you go.
Everything.
Right.
Yeah, because Mineral's
supposed to be
right. We'll get
board.
like a crease, just like a millimeter or two in from the edge, or what? You can do it in your terms, an eighth. No, a
What are
16th.
these views you speak of?
I don't do that.
If you have poly bags, those stretch a little bit, so they're a little more forgiving.
Yeah.
I'd put them in that until you get the right stuff.
Yeah, I just buy some Silver Age bags and be done with it.
Yeah,
All right.
I just ran out, but yeah.
So, all right, not too many grades coming in. We only got one. Yeah, so I'd say the consensus here is
Well, we know
decent
Magnus
for
versus
some of us.
Feather Age 4.
yeah, we know that one. We have to review that one in the future. At least we know we have one guy that's going to really be watching it. So, all right, so there was it actually went up in progression. We had a 1, 2, 2.5, and 3. So I like it. It just shows the what was that the hockey stick grade. So, all right, so that's Aliens vs Predator. At this point, we're going to go ahead and get ready to sign off. We're going to talk to each person, each of the my colleagues here, and see what they have coming down the pipe here shortly. And then we'll also mention what we're going to review next, so y'all can follow along with this. Let's go ahead and start this off with Mr. Miracle. Dave, what do you have currently working on or coming up soon?
Well, I put out my weekly video yesterday, so there was 5 undervalued comics picks, some spec picks there, and then next week when I put out my normal Wednesday video, it's going to be my 100th spec pick since I started doing them, since I started my YouTube channel. And so I've got a few kind of special books picked out that I've been saving up for this next show, and it should be a really, really good one. So try and check that one out on Wednesday, because I'll have some really good spec picks that people can pick up that are flying way, way under the radar. I'll give you all the reasons why I think that happens. So that's what I've got coming in. It's game over, man. It's game over.
Game over. Oh, I was going to go in there and Bill Paxton with you. All right, so Comic at 84. What do you have coming down the chute?
Well, I know tomorrow's the second edition of the Mega Power Hour, brother.
You and Biggie?
Me and Biggie Shack, and because we want it to be guests, we want guests to be a part of it as well. So we have our first guest tomorrow, Mr. Y290, YouTube is 90, aka Chad 90 MF Comics. It's gonna be our guest, and just know the show is not a totally out. Because maybe on paper it might sound like, man, what do Comic Head and Biggie get into? Is that off the rails? Well, there's a formula, and I think it's quite cool too. A top 5 wrestling list, pro wrestling list, which in this case is best tag teams. We're gonna list our favorite tag teams, and then
Road Warriors.
2. What do you say, Road Warriors?
Road Warriors.
Yeah,
I'm a child of the 80s.
and then 2, we want to show some comics and talk a little comics, and we're always going to try to make the pro wrestling list and the comic category like sync up a bit or connect. So favorite tag teams on the pro wrestling segment in the beginning, and then on the comic side we're going to go through some of the comics that we have in our collection of our favorite team ups in comics. So look forward to that. Hopefully if you're a fan of both, this will definitely hit the spot for you. And then we always end the show off with YouTube channels that are Mega Power approved that we want to make sure you know about. So we just try to give little shout outs to people in the community and channels that we like that we want to make sure you know about. So that's what's cooking tomorrow. That's Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, Mega Power Hour. But beyond that, I'm just winging it.
Cool. Hey, do you know what's going on with Ric Flair? What's Nate? He got hospitalized again. What's going on with him?
Oh, I don't know. No, it might be something. Because
I
he
read that
almost died
today.
recently. Like, wasn't it a year or two ago? He was in really bad. He
Yeah,
was
they
almost
induced a coma in him for like 11 days last year.
yeah.
So, but he just got admitted to the hospital again today, I heard. So,
Hard times, Daddy, for Ric Flair.
He's run into some bad luck. He was in 2 plane accidents, bad car crashes, falling off a roof. I mean, this man is, I don't know how this man's alive.
True.
okay. All right. So that is what Comic Head 84 has coming to you. Metarog, what about you, sir? What do you have that the community would find interest in now?
Well, every Monday night, I'm on Bub's Comics No Faces chat from 7 o'clock. And again, I'm there with DS Comics and Bub's Comics, and sometimes with a special guest. We have a great time, and I should be there from now on. I was out of town, so I wasn't there last week. I'm also going to do a special video on Tuesday on Tower Comics, which you'll see a little snippet here. I have the complete set. I'm going to be talking about the concept behind this, and a little bit of a review and a little bit of background. And as usual, I have my Thursday contest roundup, and I usually add a few snippets of pickups or AOKs or whatever might come my way during that show as well.
All right, good stuff. Good stuff. Oh, it's funny, you start talking about wrestling and they start chiming in on the chat again. It's great. there were some classic tag teams out there, but who's the one? Who used to tag up with that Abdul the Butcher? Who was that? Oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember
Iron
that.
Sheik?
Nikolai Volkov, man.
Was it with? Was that with Abdul the Butcher? I can't remember if it was Chief Wahoo or. I'm just remembering those two together. Oh my
Chief
god.
Wahoo.
The Iron Sheik.
Oh man.
Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik. There's a tag team.
Oh yeah, that was a tag. Everyone, you know what? It was getting a little more saccharine at that point, a little more mainstream. But if those guys had come out about 5 years earlier in the territories, they probably got killed. I mean, it was dangerous, man. People took their wrestling. Kayfabe was real back then.
Yeah.
And people were getting stabbed in the back for a lot less than hating on America. So could you imagine those guys like down in the middle of Georgia in 1977? Yeah, they wouldn't have made it.
Hey, there's 90 MF Comics. Dude, that one totally did not occur to me. The Rock and Sock connection. That's a funny ass pick, man.
Good one. Good one.
When the Rock and Mankind linked up. That's hilarious.
Oh,
yeah, it's going to be a fun time, y'all, tomorrow night. I feel like there's a lot of, we've mentioned this before, but like a lot of crossover of comic fans and pro wrestling fans, especially fans of the older stuff, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Gorilla Monsoon and Dusty Rhodes. That's my era.
Ooh, man, you are getting back there now.
Yeah, oh, in the ring, you mean? Yeah, because Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain are my favorite absolute announcing team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he became an announcer later. That's true.
Damn good. Vince isn't bad either, but yeah, those two. And Jesse's not too bad either sometimes when he's beating up on.
We're a great team. Well, yeah.
All right. Well, I don't have any wrestling shows coming up. I did do a wrestling promo thing a couple months ago, but right now my big project is reviewing the Friday the 13th movies and putting them up for your viewing pleasure or displeasure, depending if you like long videos or not. Yep. So I've got the first 2 movies up there, and I'll be working on the third one this weekend. Like I said, they take a long time to do, so forgive me for putting them out once a week, but there's only so many hours in the day, and I spend about 6 hours, 7 hours editing these things. So, other than that, I did have some interviews lined up. I don't know what happened to some of the dates. They've got pushed back, but you just can't trust Australians. So what are you going to do? I mean, they don't have any idea of schedule and time. So I actually had 2 of them lined up. I had a crocodile biologist that I've been talking to for a long time, and a mixed martial artist down in the pipe, so of old. And he's actually in the Hall of Fame, UFC Hall of Fame. Interesting guy. But that's basically what I got going right now. Who knows what I'll do this weekend? I want to get a new GoPro because I got a new motorcycle and all. I've been riding like crazy. So, and the weather's finally changed down here to where it's not raining every damn day. So I've been riding every chance I get. So hopefully there'll be some more motovlog kind of things going up. But that's basically what I got going on. So on that note, if chat has no more questions, we'll go ahead and say our goodbyes, and then stay tuned for 2 Thursdays from now is when we'll do the next one. And we'll probably do it on Comic Head's channel or maybe on Mr. Miracle's channel if he can get his stream working. Have you? You said you fixed that, right?
Yeah, I've got it worked out now.
So maybe we can do it on your channel, unless you want to do it on your channel, Metarog. But
No. Not the Metarog laptop is from the 90s. No.
yeah, we like to jump around. So hey, we appreciate everyone tuning in. If for some reason you are not subbed up to something else in the chat, please do so. Make sure you're subbing each other up. Make sure you're going to each other's channels, liking, and just being a support for the community. We love having this great audience that we have every 2 weeks when we do this thing, and we appreciate you tuning in. So any last words here from my esteemed colleagues?
Yeah, I say let's announce the next book. So if the chat wants to, make a point to check it out you got 2 weeks to check it out, so you can follow along next time. And the next pick was the prestigious Metarog's pick. So what you got cooking over there? He had some great options for us. It was a tough one. It was a Sophie's choice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I try to give you guys some options or that are, shall we say, have a little variety to them, but they were all John Byrne art in those picks because I'm a huge John Byrne fan. He came on right when I was getting big into comics in the early 70s. So I wanted to do a John Byrne book in the worst way, so I couldn't wait till it was my turn.
That guy grew up like 6 blocks from here.
You did? You lucky dog.
John
He's
Byrne.
An Englishman who moved to Canada, so. But,
He moved to Canada when he was like a baby.
Yeah, it was a little bitty thing. So I think the consensus is that we're going to go with Sensational She-Hulk #1, and I am very happy about that because this is Byrne taking over a book which this character was going nowhere, has gone nowhere, and he really did this very different from any comic book that came before that I have ever read. So I am very excited to see what my esteemed colleagues will think about the somewhat unusual writing style that John Byrne has, and also a little bit of quirky art here and there. So get ready for, I'm thinking, a lot of deep analysis in the next 2 weeks because this is going to be epic. So see ya at Mr. Miracle's channel in 2 weeks from today.
You will be here, and we will be square.
This is like Outer Limits. Okay? Do not adjust your television set. We are controlling transmission. In 2 weeks.
You start doing a Rod Serling voice, we're going to have to cut you out.
And this one is, this is going to be a cheap one to find too. So if anyone who tunes into these shows doesn't have it, I mean, you're going to score. It's the #1 issue and all, but you're going to score that one really on the cheap. So yeah, we'd love you to give it a read. My boo, She-Hulk. I'm very excited. It's been a long time since I read that. So looking forward to it. Yeah,
and this is a beautiful rendition of She-Hulk on this cover too. So that's my opinion. So we'll see what Mr. Miracle thinks. The man whose candy was stolen last night, evidently, thinks in 2 weeks.
I haven't read it since it first came out, so we'll see.
Okay.
Gray Man just had a great comment that just was an amalgam of what we've been talking about. Sensational Sherry She-Hulk. Well played, Gray Man. Well played.
Very well done. Very well done.
That's rough. Yeah, I'm thinking back now. That's as bad as roller derby. But anyway, all right. Well, I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight and hanging with us for this couple-hour-long show. I definitely want to thank once again my co-hosts for all the work they do and for putting great ideas out there and for coming back week after week. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and sign out. Once again, stay tuned 2 weeks from now. We'll have She-Hulk #1 coming at you, courtesy of Metarog on probably Mr. Miracle's channel. So until next time, this is Genome and some of the best guys in comics signing out.
It's game over, man.
Game over.